Dan Greene, the EVP of Operations and Marketing at Mortgage Cadence. Dan's going to share the outcomes of his latest KPI study with us. I've known Dan a long time, and I can say this. He's been in the mortgage industry a long time. And how I know this is that he would rather be talking about the history of hip-hop today. He has this really sweet graph that he'd rather show that shows the Sugar Hill Gang, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar. But unfortunately, Trevor said no. And little did you know that Dan is from Detroit, so he is 8 Mile, so watch out. But all joking aside, this next topic is a labor of love for Dan. He spends a ton of time gathering, analyzing, and reporting this data in a cogent fashion. So with that, will you please help me welcome Dan to the stage?
If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Alan, for the music. I appreciate that. Truth is, I grew up not too far off 8 Mile, so there is a lot of truth in that story. And I actually am originally from Detroit. So, but the hip hop thing, yeah, not so much. Maybe more Motown's a little my speed, and my era. So I want to thank you all. A couple things before we get started on the most exciting benchmarking and KPI lecture you will ever see in your life. A couple things quick. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate seeing you all again this year. We look forward to Ascent and putting this together, and most importantly, seeing all of you while we're here at the Broadmoor. I also want to thank our sponsors. Without them, we really couldn't do this. And for amazing support year after year after year. Some of our sponsors have been with us actually as long as we've been doing this. So if I could have a round of applause for our sponsors. Okay, so let's talk about 5 KPIs that drive any growth strategy. As Jeff said, this is something I do spend a fair amount of time on, but I do it because I really love it. I really enjoy it. As Jeff said, marketing and operations are what I'm responsible for, which you might think, yeah, it's kind of a weird mix. And it is kind of a weird mix. I majored in accounting and finance and economics, but I haven't done actual accounting in a million years. And as a recovering accountant, I now do marketing math. So Jeff and I do a lot of finance work together, and I'll say, well, you know, this is marketing math, Jeff. It's pretty close. So this is actually better than marketing math. And there's some great things about this year's benchmark that, because we've been doing it for so long, it starts to tell a really interesting story. So let's dive into it. So why do we do this? So I've been curious about lending performance pretty much from the moment I got into the mortgage industry, as Jeff said, a long time ago. It really was about 25 years ago. And those of us who've been lending that long know that back then we had very little technology and we did a lot of things by hand. So what really kept me interested in mortgage lending is how can we apply technology and how can we use it to make things better in terms of faster, better in terms of cheaper, better in terms of a better experience. So benchmarking helps us figure out is any of this stuff working? And as I'll share with you this afternoon, it actually is. So what we do in our benchmarking is we give you a look at your individual performance. So you can look at yourself over time. This time you can look at yourself over 6 years, from 2012 to 2017. You can also look at yourself versus your peers for the same period of time. So good to look at your own performance, but even better to look at yourself versus other lenders like you and other lenders using the same platform that you use. It's a rare opportunity because if you're all on the same platform, you might say, why do we need to do this? We should all get the same performance. But that's not the case. So it makes you ask interesting questions. Why is my number this and the group number this? That's part of the purpose of this. And then the final reason is we come up Well, I was going to say 50,000 feet, but if I look at that airplane in the picture here, that thing would get about 50 feet off the ground. We're going to come up about 50,000 feet, and we're going to look at what's gone on over the last 6 years. And it's been a really interesting 6 years in mortgage lending. A ton has happened, and it gives us some indication of what is likely to happen, what's likely to happen into the future. We're going to look a little bit of time today at the story behind the numbers. And if any of this is interesting to you, or parts of this are interesting to you, and you want to know more about the story behind the numbers, call me up. Let's talk. I'm happy to talk with everybody and anybody about this. So what do we measure? 5 things. 5 very high-level things, and this is on purpose. So we do velocity, which is time to close. We do borrower share, which is a measure. It's a market share measure. It's a measure of market share within a given year. So it's simply the number of loans you closed compared to your customer base in the same calendar year. We do pull-through, industry standard average. Everybody looks at pull-through. Very important because we only get paid when loans close. And then there's the 2 money metrics. These are the ones that pull the money lever, productivity and cost to close. Now, the first 3 are super simple to calculate. It's just simple division. Even a marketer can do it, and I do it pretty well. Productivity is easy too, pretty simple measure. That's the number of closed loans per employee per month. Cost to close is trickier. Cost to close is the hardest number to consistently get to in this industry. We calculate it, MBA calculates it, ABA calculates it, and lo and behold, everybody comes up a little bit different. There are different ways to do cost accounting, so that's pretty natural. In our study, what's really helpful to all of you is we calculate it the same way for everybody using the same publicly available data from the call report that you file with your regulator. So we're using a consistent set of numbers, and it gets us to a cost to close that I've been told by many CFOs, this is directionally correct. In fact, one CFO said to me, "How'd you get so close? Because that's my number. And you don't have access to the data that I have." And I explained it. He said, "Yeah, that makes sense." So we know that we're better than directionally correct here. We're pretty close to the mark. Now, very high level, there's only 5 metrics. They're not intended to go deep. They're intended to be diagnostic. They're intended to make you want to ask questions. And when I have the chance to meet with all our benchmark study participants, which I do every year in the spring and summer, we have good conversations about, why is this number this? Why is that number that? How did my peer get here? These are intended to make you ask questions. They're intended to make you go, what's going on here? And then where you go from there, because you have all the data that we don't have, you have the deep data, you can dive deeper into every one of these measures and start to figure out why they are what they are. But my theory has always been, until you know these, why go deeper? Why go into very finite and down in the weeds metrics? Until you know this, you don't know what you're trying to solve for. These will help you try and solve for things, plus they'll give you an easy way to track progress over a long period of time. So that's what we do. We're going to talk about the first 3, results of the first 3 first, because they're easy. And then we're going to talk about the 2 that pull the profit lever, productivity and cost to close, at a little bit more length. So, closing faster, closing more, reaching less. Velocity, pull-through, and market share. So the not so bad. So pull-through actually held steady at about 50% between 16 and 17. That was interesting to me. It didn't actually make a lot of sense. Nor did this. Velocity increased by 5%. In other words, we closed loans faster, 5% faster, in 2017 than we did in 2016. And this, like I said, this didn't make sense to me. And here's why. We all know, when I met with the study participants last year, many of you told me, we're getting lots of applications, but our borrowers can't find homes. We know there's a supply problem, pretty much across the United States. So as I was expecting when we did this year's study that pull-through would actually have dropped and velocity might actually have decreased. In other words, it took longer. So here's what I think. Here's my theory. Last year, pull-through went up, and velocity went up. And what I was kind of looking through it, and I started talking with some folks. So it turns out that I have a theory, and the theory is many of you are starting to use Intuvo. Intuvo is one of our, if they are a major sponsor this year. And they have a platform, as you know, that helps you manage and nurture leads and manage and nurture borrowers in the pipeline. I think what we're seeing here is a steady increase in pull-through and a steady decrease in velocity because we're doing a better job of nurturing the borrower through the pipeline and through the process. It's only 2 years of data, but I'm pretty confident drawing that conclusion, and I'll look forward to looking at it in 19 and 20 and on and see if we can keep seeing that number go up, because nurturing leads and applications is really important. Now, the not so good. Boy, my upper Midwest accent came out there for a minute. Not so good. Borrower share, the market share measure, was actually down 17%, 16 to 17. Now, I always look, there's an easy answer to that oftentimes, and the first easy answer to that is the customer base increased. And it did, it went up 7%. So same group of lenders, same period of time. Universally, the customer base went up 17%, but market share went down 17. So we got 10% to account for. Now, part of that is, that's not it. I was going to say part of that is something that it isn't, so we won't go there. But what that would tell you is likely competition from other places. That's my guess. I think what it also presages is we're going to have to work harder, we're going to have to market harder for a reason we're going to talk about in a minute, because the business mix has changed pretty substantially, and it's not going to change back to refi from purchase. It looks like it's going to stay at purchase. So overall, good. Velocity pull-through, great. Customer share could be better, but gives us something to work on in this year. Now, one picture of the whole story. It's actually going to be two pictures, but we're going to do one really big picture and try and hit most of the story in this next view. So we're going to look at 2012 to 2017. We're going to look at productivity versus cost to close, and we're going to superimpose on that annual mortgage volume for that same period of time, and we're going to look at the business mix too. And we're going to do that in 4 phases over that 6-year period. So here we go. So 2012 to 2013, this is the period I call refi madness. Thought I'd get a laugh out of that. Okay. We are in Colorado after all. Refi madness. Okay, now you get it. Let me orient you to what you're looking at here. So on the top of the graph, on the left-hand side, is cost to close. That's the blue line. On the far right-hand side is productivity. That's the orange line. So you can see in 2012 and 2013, productivity was very high at 5 closed loans per employee per month. Cost to close was $2,800, cheap. Cost to close reported by MBA this year was $8,000 alone. It was $2,800 6 years ago. Now, this is important because you always want the orange line on top and you want the blue line on the bottom. These two measures are inversely related. If one's up, the other's down. It's mathematically completely true that that's always the way it works. Now, on the bottom, we're looking at mortgage volume. This is the total U.S. market, not just us, total U.S. market. Pay attention to the big pink dot. The big pink and white dot in 2012, the more pink it is, the more refi in the market. So the thing to remember here is 3/4 refi in 2012. Almost 70% refi in 2013. So you can see what was going on in this period, this first period of the graph. Now, the second period is 2014 through 2016. This is a period I'm calling Don't Trid on Me. That's better. Okay, that's better. A lot happening in this period of time, too. A tremendous amount going on here in the mortgage market and the regulatory environment. So let's talk about the market volume here quickly first. So huge drop in volume, down to $1 trillion in 2014. But not only was there a huge drop, look at the little pink dot and you see that half of it was refi and half of it was purchase. We're starting to see the change in mix, that as you look into 15 and 16, it's 50% refi, 50% refi in both those years. Volume's going up again, that's really good. What's happening with cost to close and productivity? Hey, 2014, bad year, worst year we'd had. Cost to close went to $5,000. MBA at that year reported about $7,500. Productivity dropped to 3 closed loans. And you can see that as volume went up, productivity got better, cost to close came down, and in 2016 was like, ooh, they're going to cross. These lines are going to cross. I can't wait to do 2017. God, what a nerdy thing to say. I can't wait to get all this data. Really, it's true. They're going to cross again, and productivity is going to go high, and cost to close is going to go low. Well, then we look into the next period, which is 2017, the last year we have cost to close and productivity data for. And they didn't cross. They went the opposite way. We're at $5,300, almost $5,300 cost to close. We're at 3.34 productivity. So cost up, productivity down. You can see what happened with volume. It went down, not a lot, but again, the big pink and white dot, which is now mostly white. We're getting into the period of time when purchase money is the type of loans we're going to do, and it looks like we're going to be doing that for a good long time. So as I said, we don't have, because we just finished 2017's analysis, we don't know what productivity or cost to close is going to be in the future, but we do know, we do have a prediction from the MBA on what volume and mix is going to be 18, 19, and 20. We're calling this Here Be Dragons. Volume, relatively constant, 1.6 to 1.7 trillion, but look at how white the big pink dot became. It's 3/4 purchase. So my prediction is going to be productivity, if you just looked at this and you said, boy, productivity is going to, you can look at this and say it's affected by the purchase mix, which it is, and it's going to be more purchase. You could say, things don't look good. But there's a reason to be cheerful, I think. This graph, and this is the last graph, I promise you. It's too late in the afternoon for graphs. The white bars are the purchase mix in each of the 6 years. The orange and blue bar are productivity. So you can see in 2012, purchase was about 25%, round numbers. 2020, it's going to be 75%. 2016 and 2017, we just saw productivity dropped, so that's the blue dot and the blue dot in 16 and 17 connected by the blue line. But here's the thing. The purchase mix went way up from under 50% or right around 50% to almost 66% in 2017. But productivity didn't drop at the same proportion. I'm optimistic. I think what this means is we're learning to do purchase and we have the potential to scale. At first I wasn't optimistic until I looked at it this way. I said, I think we're going to figure this out. I really think we're going to figure this out. So I'll make my first shameless plea for please participate again next year. If you're interested in participating this year, it's not too late. The more data, the better. Happy to have you in. Talk to your CRE. Now, what we looked at was averages. So this is the group average. Everybody in the study, the numbers you saw, productivity, cost to close. So what's interesting, though, is there's always a group in a population who performs differently than everybody else. There's a group that's different. And there's a group that, it's about eight lenders in the study whose productivity year over year over year is above the average. You'll remember that average This year is 3, let's call it 3.3. These top performers are looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 closed loans per employee per month. The reward, there's 2 rewards for that. First reward is their cost to close is less than half of the group average. So when we're looking at $5,300 per loan for the group average, these guys, $2,500 and less. It's a huge difference. So think about that. If your cost to close drops by 50% by increasing your productivity, 1 loan, 2 loans, 3 loans, 4 loans per month. So same staff, same system. You don't have to change technology because it's all the same technology we're talking about here. So we've isolated that variable. So what do? Well, you work on process, you work on people within the process, and you push your productivity higher. Do more loans, the same team, the same system. The reward is pretty enormous. So if you had $2,500 more per loan that you weren't spending to produce, what would you do with it? Well, put some of it on the bottom line. That's reasonable. Got to make money. But in an increasingly competitive market, which we're in, it's purchase, it's competitive. We saw market share go down. In an increasingly competitive market, put some of it in price. This is in your control. Cost to close is completely in your control, and the best way to control it is productivity. And the reason the productivity is the best way to control it is labor is 50% of the cost to close. You reduce labor, you make more money, you have more money to be competitive. The other reward, and this is big too, and it might be a chicken and egg thing, but this group, same high-performing group, also every year has a 50 basis point higher market share than their peers, than the overall average. Interesting. So it's chicken and egg in that, do you have to be a high-performance lender to have high market share, or do you have high market share because you're a high-performance lender? I'm going to hypothesize that it's you have higher market share consistently because you're a higher performance lender. You're probably perceived as somewhat better at it. You're not necessarily faster, because they're not. Their velocity isn't necessarily faster than the group. But generally speaking, probably perceived as better overall. The rewards for pushing your productivity up are significant. How do you do it? We've isolated the technology variable, so go after process. How do you go after process? You've heard from Trevor yesterday. You heard from Monica this morning, and in the breakouts today about our partner program, our partner ecosystem. We can help you with process. We can help you improve process. And any amount of money you spend on improving process is going to fall to your bottom line. I can guarantee it. I can see it. You can see it too. So our partner program can help, so can we. We can help you through professional services. Please call on us because you've made the investment in technology. Get more out of it, and let us help you get more out of it. So, hope you'll do that. I hope more of you will participate in the benchmark study. I'd like to get this to a 10-year series. Got 4 more to go. I'd honestly like to have everybody in it. The more data, the better, the more meaningful it becomes, the more conclusions you can draw, and the longer the series we have, the more interesting story it has. And I promise you this, if we get more periods of time, we get to 10 years, I'll come up with more interesting titles for the periods. I thought I hit a home run with Refi Madness. I'll have to try harder. So, success equals rewards. But it also, quickly, success also leaves clues. Why are high-performance lenders high-performance lenders? That's a really good question. We're going to do some work on that this spring and summer. We're going to talk with each of them. We're going to see if we can uncover some of their secrets, and we're going to try and share those with you because we know it's possible to get more from your technology. We want you to get more from it, and I think your peers will probably share some nuggets with you as well. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate you guys. I mean, it's beautiful outside. I can't believe you're here. Now, honestly, when you were in college, it was a spring day, and you had an economics class at 4 o'clock, where did you go? not to economics class. So thank you very much. See you tonight at the show.